so this is going to be objective 22. We are going to find the nth term of a geometric series, and we are going to find sums of geometric series. And I think I made a typo on there. That actually should say geometric sequence, the nth term of a sequence. And then the sum of a series, because when we see series, what series talking about is talking about the sum, what you get when you add all the numbers together in the sequence. So I'll need to fix that. Any questions on this? I got it? All right, so here's your formula, which is on the formula sheet that I just gave you. To find the nth term, what's the nth term, by the way? Anything. It can be your 5th term. It can be your 7th term. It can be your 29th term. It can be your 768th term, whatever term you want it to be, okay? A sub n is equal to a sub 1. What's a sub 1? Your first term. Times r. What's r? Very good. Remember yesterday we were working with arithmetic sequences and series. And so those had a common difference. Arithmetic means you're adding to get the next term. Geometric, you're multiplying to get the next term. So we're going to be working with a common ratio today. Yes, it is. It's going to be raised to the n minus 1. Okay, it's going to be raised to the n minus 1. And n is going to be the number term that goes with the a sub n, okay? A sub n is the value of the nth term. N is the number term it is in that sequence. So, 5 examples today. Example 1, we're going to find 3 geometric means between 2 and 1250. So what would I do first? Yeah, I would set it up. I would draw my 2. I'm looking for the 3 missing terms between 2 and 1250. Now this would be really easy to find if I knew what? Like, how could I get my second term? If I knew my common ratio. If I knew what I was timesing by every time, I could just start timesing and I could get all the terms. Correct? So, let's go to our formula. Our formula says a sub n is equal to a sub 1 times r raised to the n minus 1. Let's plug in what we know. What do you think we know? So the first thing I know is I know my first term is 2. So we know a sub 1 is 2. The only other piece of information I get, 2, 3, 4, 5, is I know that the 5th term is 1250. And I do agree with Landon. He said, well, in this particular sequence, there's only 5 terms. But I'm looking for the middle terms. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is use 1250 as my a sub n. Okay? So 1250, and we know that that's going to then make n 5. Okay, and we're going to solve for the common ratio. Any questions on that? So 1250. I'm going to go ahead and work the exponent out. This is going to make n minus 5. That's going to make r to the 4th. Now, I know I have not shown you how to solve things to the 4th power, but I can guess that somebody in here can tell me how to do it. What do you think I should do first if I want to get r by itself? In a minute, I'm going to take the 4th root, but before we take the 4th root, we need to isolate it. So what do I need to get rid of first? I need to divide by 2 first. We're going to isolate it and get r to the 4th equals 625. And then, very good, you guys told me to get rid of raising something to the 4th power, I'm going to take the 4th root on both sides. Let me remind you, to take the fourth root in your calculator, you need to press 4. Then you need to do math 5, the x root, and then you're going to put in 625. And so what's my common ratio? 5. That means that's what I'm timesing by every single time. So what's my next number? 10, 50, 250, because I'm timesing by 5, and then that works us all the way up to 1250. Okay, any questions on that? I will mention to this, when we take the fourth root of an even power, generally what do we do on both sides? We make it plus or minus. So I will tell you, there is another way, there is another option here. It could be that you're timesing by negative 5, and it would work. Let me show you. If I times by negative 5, it would be negative 10, then it would be positive 50. Does that make sense? And then when you times by negative 5, you would get negative 250, and then when you times by a negative, you would get a positive 1250. So that would work too. Does that make sense? So you could actually times by a positive 5 or a negative 5, and that would work, plus or minus. You got a shortcut. Shortcut, shortcut. What is it?
Well, it's just like a formula, but it's cheating and all that work.
Okay, so what are you doing?
1250 divided by 2, which you get 625.
Mm-hmm.
Takes the root of 20
Okay. Right. And so again, that's just working the formula, going backwards. All right, so you tried this one on your own, and I think that will lead us up to lunchtime. Am I right? So I'm going to try to get this one finished before we go to lunch. We know a sub 1 is 0.5. In this case, the only other info that I've been given is that the sixth term is 512. So I'm going to use that as my a sub n. So a sub n is going to be 512, and that's going to make r to the 6 minus 1. So I'm going to go ahead and work my exponent first. 0.5, it's r to the 5th. So when I divide by 0.5 on both sides, r to the 5th is, anybody help me out? 1024. And then how do I get rid of something raised to the 5th power? We're not going to square root, we're going to take a 5th root. So the 5th root on either side. Now I will tell you, this one will not work if it's an odd power. We only do pluses and minuses with square roots and 4th roots and 6th roots. So if it's a 5th root, you won't do a plus or minus. What's the 5th root of 1024? 4. So that's what? That is what my common ratio is. So if I times by 4, what do I get? 2, then 8, then 32, then, and then 512. Times by 4, times by 4, times by 4. Okay, any questions on that? All right, so I will leave you here for lunch to work on this one, and then we'll catch this one when we get back from lunch. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could, and again, I applaud you for reading it and understanding what you're talking about versus just looking at random numbers and trying to make them do something. You know, we know our first term is 2400, And we know we're trying to find the seventh term. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You could times by a fourth, da 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 da. Okay, and that would be just fine. Okay. I do want to make sure you can use the formula correctly, so that's the way we're going to roll with it. A sub n is equal to a sub 1 times your common ratio raised to the n minus 1. We know our first term is 2400. We know that the common ratio is a fourth, and we are looking for the seventh term, so we're searching for a sub 7. That's what we're searching for, a sub 7. The seventh, hang on. We're searching for the value of the seventh term, but that's going to make n 7 minus 1. Okay? Be careful when you put this in your calculator. Make sure you have your parentheses. If it were me, I would put in 2400 times a fourth raised to the 6th power. And then you wouldn't have to worry about the parentheses. Because if you don't put parentheses around the 7 minus 1, it won't work out right. So, what does a sub 7, or our seventh term, equal? 75 over 128. So you get a decimal, just math enter it, and make it a fraction. How many got 75 over 128? Good. How many did the option A? You just drew the blanks and found the seventh term. Okay. How many did the formula? Option B. And that's fine either way you go. Okay. You will want to use the formula like, what if I said, what's the 45th term? You're not going to want to draw 45 blanks. So there you have the formula. So let's go ahead. We got 2 examples left. Let's go ahead and talk about a series. When I say series, what do I mean? I mean the sum. So S sub n is going to be equal to a sub 1 times quantity of 1 minus r to the n, all divided by 1 minus the common ratio. There is a little stipulation there, and it says r cannot equal 1. What does that mean? Well, I agree. If you just times by 1, it's just going to be the same. So I agree with that. But in this case, to find the sum, explain to me with this formula, why can't r be 1? Because it's going to make the denominator 0. And it's all fun and games until we try to divide by 0, because we know that that can't happen. So what is this r cannot equal 1? What do I do with that? Yeah, it's just a excluded value. It's just trying to help the world out and tell them that r can be pretty much anything you want it to be except for 1. So you can pretty much ignore that part. This is the formula we will be working with. Okay? Any questions on that? Nope. Let me go back. All right, so let's look at example 4. We are going to find the sum. We're going to use the formula S sub n is equal to a sub 1 times quantity of 1 minus r to the n. Yes? All divided by 1 minus r. Okay? Let's plug in what we know. We know a sub 1 is 2. We know n is 10. We know r is 3. Okay, now, here's what I will tell you. It's starting to get really tricky as far as putting this into your calculator. Okay? And it may be, like, there's 2 ways to do this. How do we work a fraction? You either work the whole top, get an answer, then you work the denominator and get an answer, and then you divide. There may be some, hint, 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 when you get to your homework where, like, you try to do the whole top and you try to do the bottom and you try to divide, and then you get like an error message. So what you may have to end up doing is you may have to work it the whole thing all at once. And to do that, you just need to put in some extra parentheses. Okay? So I would highly recommend that you do parentheses 2 times the quantity, parentheses, 1 minus 3 to the 10th, close parentheses, and then close the second one, all divided by parentheses 1 minus 3, close parentheses. So you just need to make sure when you're working a fraction that you put an extra set of parentheses around the numerator and the denominator. So what's our sum come out to be? There, she got it. I mean, you could totally divide it by -2, because 1 minus 3 is -2. That's right, 59,048. And that makes sense. Why is it going to be that big? Because it's a sum. I'm starting with 2. I'm multiplying by 3. Do you understand this? When I times by 3, times by 3, times by 3, times by 3, I mean, it's going to get large pretty quickly. And so it is going to be larger. Any questions on that? Everybody okay to get it in the calculator successfully? Please make sure you try, because these do get a little bit quickly. Like when you go up to the 10th and you arrow up, how do you get back down? You got to use your arrow over and make sure you get back down. So you have to play with that a whole lot too, because once you arrow up, you're stuck up there in exponent land until you arrow out of it and get back down. So make sure you play with that. Okay. All right. So take a look at this last one. This time we're looking for a sub 1. Is that a big deal? No. So again, just because we haven't specifically looked at an example just like that doesn't mean you can't do it successfully. Did I figure out what a sub 1 is? Not quite. What's Levi think? 12. Attaboy. 12 is what it should be. How many else got 12? Guys got 12? Got a couple. All right, so let's look at this. So first of all, I'm going to start with the S sub n formula, because first of all it says series in the problem, and then it gives me an S sub n value. So that's going to imply to me to start with the series formula. Okay, I'm going to plug in what I know. Any questions about where I plugged in what? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to work this out and work this out and divide the two and get a number, or could I just put this in all at once? Just make sure you put parentheses around it. So do parentheses 1 minus 3 to the 7th. Use your arrow and get down and close your parentheses and divide it by either -2 or divide it by parentheses 1 minus 3, close parentheses. And tell me what you get. You get what? I feel like I get something. 293 is what I think we should get. 1093? Okay, 1093. Did everybody get 1093? So that's going to be equal to 1093, and then I still got the a sub 1 beside of it. So tell me, how do I get rid of timesing by 1093? We're going to divide by 1093 on both sides. 1093. And so a sub 1 is going to be equal to, should be 12. Any questions on solving for the variable? You could, if you wanted to, you could, I guess, times by -2 first. Like get rid of your fraction. Anybody do that? Times by -2 on both sides. And then from there, you can divide by whatever 1 minus 3 to the 7th is and get it that way if you wanted to. Any questions?